Here we have the new controller from FLYDIGI. I can't wait to open it up and see how it feels and start gaming with it. Rule the game. That's a nice slogan. Dedicated to innovation and mechanic, blah blah blah. Design of the year. All right, so let's see what this controller is all about. Nice little cable here. USB-C to USB. Wow, right off the bat, this feels a lot heavier than the other controllers. This is probably the heaviest controller that I've held. So this comes at 327 grams. If we compare it to an Xbox controller, which is at 245 grams. And if we compare it to a DualSense, at 282 grams. So these have a Hall effect, but they do have these snap joysticks that I've seen these at different reviews. And I gotta say, it does feel a lot different. So if we compare it to this, there's nothing like that. The D-pad feels very responsive and smooth. And you have 4 buttons, just like the Xbox controller here. Pretty much same form factor. Even the triggers are aligned, pretty much the same. So we have on and off switch. 4 back buttons. So we have the dongle. I believe this is a custom engravement for this. We'll check that out later. Now, at first glance, the controller is pretty nice. These analog sticks are different, and you could tell they're a little bit more stiffer, which will allow you for better precision and aiming in FPS games. Now, I'm going to take some time to play with this controller, figure out all the ins and outs, the features, the LED screen, and then I'll give you guys my review. Many things to talk about this controller. I've used it on a PC for a few days and I got accustomed to it really quick. It's not your regular controller. First off, it has tons and tons of features that other controllers don't have. I think the engineers did a great job creating this specimen and all the different features that are attached to it, which we'll go over in this video. I think they had the one controller rules them all mentality when creating this thing, meaning it's adaptable to different type of gaming styles such as FPS, racing games, RPGs, and basically any and all genres. So the highlight of this controller, I think, are these joysticks. They're Hall effect, but they're just on a different level. They're not like your regular Hall effect joysticks or your normal joysticks like this stiff joystick from this Xbox. So when you push it, it just goes back to center, kind of slow. Compared to this one, it just bounces right back. And when playing this, you would think that it would not center or it would wiggle. It did not wiggle at all. You also have the option right here to tighten the joysticks to see how stiff they will be, and I'll go over that in the video in just a little bit. So to turn this on, we would turn on this switch right here. You would push it here to go into the menu. And the first time, this is going to be all in Chinese. I'll just show you guys how to get it in English if it's in Chinese. When starting your controller, the first time it's going to look something like this. What we want to do is we want to push this 3 times to the right. 1, 2, 3. We're going to push A, and we're going to push it 2 more times. 1, 2, A, and then we're going to change it to English language. Now that you have it in English, you have different options to connect it, like the PC, Android, Switch, iOS. So I'm going to keep mine on PC. Then you have You know, if you want to connect it to the dongle or the Bluetooth, you have two different options. The cool thing is that all of the basic settings are on the screen, which is a big bonus, because like something like the Vader, where we couldn't customize the buttons or these back buttons, everything had to be done through the app. All the needs are here. And to be frank, if I was using this controller and not making the video, I would even never download that app for this. I would just use everything here. So once we decide where we want to connect it, the next option is the mapping buttons. And as I said, everything is done through the screen. So for trigger mode, left trigger, there's different options here. So the normal, if we put the normal, then the trigger will be normal, just like that. Then you have the sniper. There's a little bit of resistance. Trigger lock. And then you could set the travel time. So here you have resistance. If you push it, more resistance. Racing games, as you would think, a little resistance on here. So this, like when you're giving the gas. Recoil, there's like 2 or 3 steps of resistance, and it vibrates like that. And this is basically the different games you're playing. You could change the triggers based on the game, so racing, shooting. So I just keep mine on the trigger lock. So then the next setting you have is the button edit. So you could map the buttons to button or turbo. So if you map them to the buttons, basically when you push it, it's going to spam it and push it many times. So I usually do mine like this. So with the M4, I have it mapped to the X. So the M4 is this one right here. So if I wanted to change it to B, I would just push B and go to the next one. And same thing if you want to do that to the turbo mode. And then you could also reset if you want to remap it again. And then you could test the buttons to make sure each button is working. So this is pretty neat. They have a little test feature, so if you're not sure if one of the buttons are not working, you could just go in here and test it out. So config switch, so you have basically 4 different profiles that you could set up for your buttons and your colors, etc. So for the setting, you have the brightness feature, the vibration, how much you want the controller to vibrate, the languages, we already know that, hibernate, when you want the controller to go into hibernation mode. I keep mine around 15 minutes, maybe I should change it to 5 so battery doesn't die. And that's about it. Very simple. This is probably one of the best features of this controller is the screen. All the basic features are here. So like, I think, my opinion, the app is just too nerdy for me. It's just too much information, overflow. There's too many different macro and micro settings that you can do. I like to keep things simple, and this screen does it all pretty much. Now, as I mentioned, 0 dead zones on here. And this is also pretty cool. So basically your screensaver for the screen can be the custom picture, whatever you choose. I put my logo on here, and I'll show you guys how to do that later on. You're going to need to go into the app if you want to change the logo. Now, something about these triggers, even though they vibrate, they have different settings, but this one controller, the Vader, I prefer these clicky ones. These triggers are so much better. I mean, I can live with these, but I just prefer these. And I know why they did this. They did this, as I mentioned before, because they want different these triggers to be played on different games. So it is a pretty neat feature if you're using this controller to play all types of different games. I usually just stick to FPS games, and that's why I prefer this trigger. So the triggers on the Vader, in my opinion, are better. Now this cover here, it comes off. First we're gonna take these off. And this comes right off. And you have a few features here. So one of the cool features here, as I said, you could tighten and loosen up these triggers. So since I was playing it, I tightened them up for my aiming. So to loosen them up, you could just twist it counterclockwise. So now they're a little bit more looser. Now the tightening of the joysticks is basically the same concept as these controller freaks. Some, people, they put the ring here on this controller. So when you're aiming, it just cushions and softens your stick. Wow, these sticks are so much different than this one. But anyway, so yeah, so this is basically the same concept. You'll have these control freaks and you'll put it on your aiming joystick. So when you're aiming, it just cushions that aim a little bit. And this basically, that's what it does. So when you tighten this up, your controller is more stiffer, this analog stick, and you can do it for both of them. So I was able to get the control caps on here, but it's very tight. I mean, like, I would not recommend you putting these on when these sticks are on here. You should take them off like I did and just put them on, but it is a pretty tight fit. Nothing compared to like these ones. These go in pretty easy here. Now this should come off. There is a blank one that comes with a controller, so you could do your own custom label here and put it back on here, which these little small details, I think they're pretty neat. They're pretty cool. We haven't seen these before. So that goes back there, and this goes right in there. Now let's go into the app and see all the different features that we can do from there. Okay, so here we have the app here, FLYDIGI Space Station. So we're gonna click on our Apex 4. This is basically the layout of the FLYDIGI Space Station. As I mentioned before, I don't like this application. It's just way too much things here to do. It's just a controller. It's not like a rocket where you have to customize every single thing. And I don't know, this website is just, it's just a little bit flaky in my opinion, but it does everything that it needs to do. This is where we would map all of our buttons here. It's much easier on the controller, on that screen as I showed you guys. So here we would just map what button we want, rapid fire, also do the macros and all this other stuff. So for the joystick here, we could adjust the dead zones. In different presets here, so we'll just keep it at default. For the triggers, left and right triggers, these are the different modes. So I like mine on the trigger lock, and then you could damp the starting position where you want it. So now there's a lot more resistance here. If we would do it to 200, no resistance at all. One, we do have some resistance. So when you're playing like a FPS game to shoot, like you could just tap it like this, it would activate it. But still, I just prefer, like, you can't push it down any more further, So yeah, so these are all the different lights. You could change it steady. You could just keep it at blue. So I just keep it like here. There's just something else to mess around with. Okay. So let's see what else is here. This is all the games that they have the adaptive triggers customized to. So not all the games you could play with the triggers that will vibrate and stuff like that. So there's a list of games. This is screen testing. So this is where you would set up your logo here. So you just upload a file and then just apply it, and it's gonna show up there. So that's what I did with my logo. So you upload a file, and for this feature you would probably want to connect it to a USB-C. And this is the pull-in rate here. You could just test it in the app. So it's around 800, 900, pretty nice. And again, you could test all of the buttons and all of the features here. And then another little macro settings here. You could either show You see the battery life and all that stuff, or you could turn it off here. Here you have my configurations, all 4 configurations, such for regular, shooting, fighting, and racing. So for each game of the genre, you could customize your controller to that. As I mentioned before, I like my things very simple, nothing too complex. I don't want to be going into the app here and spending time doing all these things. I just want to start gaming. So on Amazon, you could get this controller for $160. If you check out AliExpress, you will get it for cheaper. This seller selling it for $75, 168 units sold. I was able to snatch it for around $90. It took about 5 to 7 business days to arrive. So it's going to take you a little bit longer than Amazon, but you will save a few dollars if you choose to buy AliExpress. And I'll leave the link in the description for both Amazon and AliExpress if you're interested. For just around $100, I think this is probably one of the best controllers you could get for the price. With the Hall effect joysticks, 0 dead zone, 4 back buttons, crazy triggers with different features, vibrating and different gaming modes. I don't think you can go wrong with this. I was using this for Warzone, but I have to move to this one just because of these joysticks and the different features they have. I could tell that the aiming on this controller is a lot better. Even though I'm not really too fond about these triggers, but you know, I'll live with it. This is my basic review of this controller. It's a thumbs up for me, but I want to hear from you. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Have you picked this one up? Are you guys enjoying it? Take care, y'all.